Welcome to Take the Lead. I'm Patty Kenner. I work mostly on women in politics, but certainly I happen to be, only for the past 3 weeks, the president of a family business. My 104-year-old father passed away 3 weeks ago, but he finally maybe thought that I could handle it. But I do believe it took him that long to think so. He signed the checks till the day he died, did the payroll till the day he died, but now he had to turn it over to me. So, and Gloria wants to turn everything over to women so that they have equality, which is wonderful. And I welcome Kathleen Turner into my home. I'm honored to have you here.
Thank you, Patty. I have to give you a hug. Not only for all those kind words, but because you're wearing red. Always my favorite color. And for you to open up your house is a very special thing. Somebody said to me not long ago, like about a week ago, that Patty is doing this at her house. Well, you have like the good housekeeping seal of approval now. So we know that Take the Lead is now ready to rock and roll. So I'm really thrilled to be here, and I would like to first give credit to Amy Litzenberger. Amy, would you please like to just let people know who you are? Amy is co-founder and chair of Take the Lead, and I think we wouldn't be where we are today if Amy hadn't started asking questions about why is it that after all these years, and we've opened doors and we've broken glass ceilings and we've seen a woman first almost everything, why is it that women are still so far away from parity? Does anybody know what the average percentage is of women in the top leadership positions in every single sector across this entire country? 18%. 18%. That's it. But we're going to fix that. So here's, in 2008, and Patty was talking about women in politics, actually that's what got me started on this journey. In 2008, at the moment when it looked like we might have our first woman president. Everybody remember that moment? Elle magazine had asked me to write an article about women running for office. And I think everyone thought that this was going to be one of those moments where women were just racing to take their place in the political world. And lo and behold, what I found was the story was women don't. And that in fact, women were only half as likely as men to ever even think about running for office. And once they thought about it, they had to be asked over and over and over again. Whereas I talked to the heads of all of the organizations, and there are now many organizations that help women run for office, Democratic, Republican, nonpartisan, all kinds. And they all said the same thing. They said a man will get up in the morning, he will look at himself in the mirror and say, I believe I'll run for Senate. And he will not even question whether he's capable, whether he's entitled to do it. A woman will say, maybe I'm interested in politics, but first I'd better learn a few things. First I'd better take a course. First I'd better work in a campaign. And by the time she finally would run, if she ever ran, the man was already the committee chair setting the agenda. So much for that. So I started on this journey of trying to figure out why. I mean, why was it? Because even by that time in 2008, statistically, if a woman ran, she was as likely to win as a man who ran. And then I learned that the statistics were exactly the same and the dynamics were exactly the same in every sector. That it was the same in business, it was the same everywhere. And that it ultimately had more to do at this point in time, now that we'd opened the doors and changed the laws, with internal barriers that we have ourselves, our own ambivalence around power. It's hard to change a culture while you're living in it. And we are socialized by the same culture that men are socialized by, and we've been socialized to think first about power being outside of ourselves, and we have an idea of power as being the power over, which has been the predominant way that our culture has looked at it. We're smart enough not to want that kind of power. So what I ended up doing was writing a book about it called No Excuses, 9 Ways Women Can Change How We Think About Power. And I ask women to shift how they think about it from a oppressive power over to a more expansive and positive power to actually get things done, to do things good, power to make life better for themselves, their families, their kids, the world. And once we do that, I would just see faces start to change. And practical activist that I am, I then created 9 power tools to give a cute little name to it, power tools, to operationalize them, to say, okay, now that you know this context, this is what you can do. And lo and behold, people started asking me to do workshops, and lo and behold, and Amy entered my life and said, well, why don't we just go make this happen all over the world? So that's how we got to take the lead today. I will just quickly tell you that our mission to prepare, develop, inspire, and propel women to take their fair and equal share of leadership positions by 2025, which is 64 years faster than we're currently going, we do it in 4 ways. And what differentiates us from many other leadership programs is that we see that there needs to be a more comprehensive program. So we have 4 different keys to parity, and they include the learning programs, they include mentoring and networking, they include role modeling, which is what we're doing tonight. How about that? We call these programs Take the Lead Presents. And we and the model is that we video them, so that's what we're doing. So we'll have this content available. You'll be able to watch it again on our website after we're all done, and people will be able to have access to it. And then 4th, we do thought leadership, because we think it's time to change the narrative from the focus on the problems, isn't it awful, to a focus on solutions. This is, for everything we can see, this is the moment when we can do it. There is a perfect storm in a good way. There's a business case for having more women in leadership. There's the World Bank has said that parliaments that have more women do better, have better decision making, and women have been earning 57% of the college degrees for about 20 years now. So we're ready to rock and roll. Yeah. And one of the 9 power tools is to use every medium, to employ every medium available to us. And nobody has employed every medium more than Kathleen Turner. Kathleen, well, actually, by way of introducing you, okay, Kathleen, actually, I think what I'd like to do is to see what everyone's favorite Kathleen Turner character is. Because that way I don't have to say, and she was in this, and she was in this, and she was in this. Who has a favorite Kathleen Turner character?
Okay.
Oh, yes, okay.
Yes, just did that last year. I'd like to do that more. I'd like to take that further, I think. That was an extraordinary production.
Nobody has mentioned Body Heat yet?
Oh, God.
But I don't know the character name.
Maddi Walker. Miss McCall and I had a lovely little relationship because I think many years ago, we met at a restaurant, I think it was Orso's. And I went over to her to introduce myself as the younger, respectful actress. I thought that was what I should do. So I went over and I said, Miss McCall, I'm so happy to meet you. And she went, oh, yes. She said, you're the young me. And I said, no, I could never claim this. Anyway, so we started this game. So every time we ran into each other, she'd say, good evening, Miss Turner. I'd say, good evening, Miss McCall. She'd say, how are you tonight? I'd say, very well, thank you. And it was, how low can you go? It was.
That is the perfect segue into the topic tonight,
Right.
which is the power of a woman's voice.
Yes.
That's what we want to talk about tonight. Who could be better to talk about the power of a woman's voice than Kathleen Turner? Now, because we wrote a book together about Kathleen's life, so I know a few things about her.
Yeah.
I recall that you realized very early in life that you enjoyed performing.
Oh, yeah.
You were 3 years old in a department store?
I think I was, yeah. My dad was with the diplomatic corps, and so we came back to the States every 2 years for home leave, yeah? So my grandparents lived in Missouri, in Springfield, Missouri. And so one Christmas, we got to go back to Missouri and have it with my grandparents. So we went into this department store, and I was 3 or 4, I guess, you know. And there's Christmas everywhere, all the decorations, and Santa Claus is somewhere, and all this is going on. And evidently, I climbed up on a case, on a, you know, this one of those things you have in the store, and started singing Christmas carols. And when people didn't stop, my mother tells me, I went, well, listen to me. I can't explain it at all.
How did that evolve into the iconic voice that you have? And I really, you know, I mean, people will use your name as a verb or as a noun to describe
Right.
your kind of a voice. How did that childhood voice evolve into the iconic voice of the woman, Kathleen Turner?
Well, I always had, I mean, physically, I always had a low voice. When I was in high school, when I was in junior high, actually, they put me with the boys to sing. You know, I couldn't even be an alto. They kind of just put me over with the boy, which was fine. I didn't mind at all. So physically, and of course, as I've gotten older and stretched the voice more, and there's technical stuff you do to create more timbre, more, you know, resonance in your voice. That's something I've worked on now for, you know, 40 years consciously. But when it comes to using the voice for something, I was brought up, as I say, in the diplomatic corps, and my father was brought up in China by 2 Victorian maiden aunts. His grandfather was a missionary, and they had very, very strong beliefs that one had a responsibility to make the world a better place. You just did. So even when we were very young, it was expected that we would find, when we were old enough, we would find a service. What it did give me is a sense of that I could make a change, I could make a difference. Even though I was 11 years old and I didn't have any purpose, really, it made a difference, and you can be aware of that. And once you start this kind of thing, you know, I'm sure everyone here knows how much it enriches your life. So it became a real factor in my life, something I wanted to do, wherever I went, however I could best be used. Anyway.
I want to talk more about...
See, if I get sanctimonious, stop me, okay? Okay.
I want to get back to voice as advocacy in a moment.
Okay.
But I sometimes you're very literal in how you interpret things. I've noticed. Yes.
I am.
And the first time I asked you a question about a woman's voice and the meaning of a woman's voice, you took out on women who don't pay attention to the quality of their voices.
Okay.
And you
Drives
said,
me crazy. I was in Los Angeles at one of these restaurants of, you know, ladies who lunch places, and there's a table nearby of women who are, you know, 15 thou on the hoof here, okay? With the clothes, with the hair, with the jewelry, with everything. And then they open their mouths, and they're talking like that. And it's, you know, it's like, why do you spend so much money on your appearance and then have a voice like that? It's so off-putting, don't you think? So that was how she asked me. I said, yeah, why don't women, you know, take a couple of thou of that money, sell a ring, and get some voice lessons, you know?
why not? Why not? Why not? But and to actually try to be a little serious about it for a moment, when it comes to making our voices heard in the world, what are some ways that you would advise women to, in fact, be able to use their voices in ways that would enable them to be heard better? Because, you know, one of the things we hear more than anything else, we hear this over and over from women. They'll say, You know, I'm in a meeting, I give an opinion or an idea, and nobody pays attention. And 10 minutes later, a man says the same thing, and everybody goes, oh yeah, well that's just the smartest thing we ever heard.
Yeah.
And so what practical advice would you
Practical
have?
advice I can do. First of all, avoid shrillness. It automatically makes people shut down. Avoid any sound that's self-pity-ish or whine-ish. Again, immediate shutdown. The ears just close. They don't want to hear it, right?
Is that true of men and women, do you think?
Yes,
Both?
I do. I think it's true of both. If you think you have a very nasal voice, that it's up in the front of your head, then be aware. Try it, work it down. Get it out of your nose, as it were. One thing you can do, quite practically, is record yourself. We don't always have any idea what we sound like from inside. So sit down with a tape recorder one day. Sit down with your iPhone and put it on record. Read a passage, read a letter, read a book out loud. Play it back. Find the qualities you like and the ones you don't in your voice. If you can identify those, work on the ones you don't like.
And no valley girls.
No Valley Girls,
Oh,
yes.
yeah, avoid like and too much. But certainly, you may dress to please yourself and because you feel good about how you look. Why not the same thing with a voice?
You knew at 20 that you wanted to play Martha when you were 50, and you made it happen.
What balls. It's only been done twice before in New York with Uta Hagen in the original production and Colleen Dewhurst in '75. So I figured, no one of my generation had done it yet. So I thought I had a good shot. I read Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf when I was 20 in college. And I thought, when I'm 50, because that was an imaginably old age to me at that point, I wanted Martha. I wanted to do Martha. So I was turning 49, and I thought I better do something about this, One of the reasons I wanted to do Martha at 50 was because, in the play she cannot have children, but she pretends that she does. So the real tragedy is when you realize that she hasn't, that this was a pretend child, and she's too old, to conceive again. Now this has changed a great deal over the years, but 50 is a safe enough age to assume that, I think. So I'm 49, and I figure I better get going. So Edward Albee in the United States, in New York, has always been produced by this woman, Elizabeth McCann, who is a very fine producer. He was writing, he just put out The Goat, and he wanted people to think of the new work, not the old. I said, well, can I talk to him? Can I meet him? So she set up a lunch for the three of us. And at the end of the luncheon, he said, well, what do you want? I said, I want a chance to read it for you. I just want to read it for you. And he said, all right. So I asked Bill Irwin, because I thought he'd be a wonderful George, and Anthony Page, who's Edward's favorite Brit director. And then I don't remember who brought in the other, Nick and Honey, really, whose idea, that was probably Anthony's or something. And we did a reading. Now we read in Anthony's flat, about a room this size, maybe just a little bigger. And I didn't even know half the people that were there or why they were there. In any case, we finished the first act and we take a break, get some water, use the bathroom. And Edward came over to me and said, I haven't heard anything like this since Uta Hagen. And I get very cocky when I'm nervous. I said, yes, and you've only heard one act. Really, talking back to Edward, I'll be like that. What was I thinking? However, we did continue and read the whole play. And I thought, okay, I'll hear when I hear. And I went home, and at 5:30 my phone rang, and they said, when do you want to start? And then just before we opened, I turned 50.
Aha. The power of using your voice, the power of speaking up, the power, yes, absolutely. I don't know whether this is true or not, or whether this is just my perception, because I haven't seen all of the performances of Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf, but the impression I have is that you were the first person who saw in Martha the woman who had no voice, even though she was shrill.
Well, you know, if you look at my body of work, you will see that there are a few common themes that I've found over the years. One of them is anger. A lot of my women are angry. Doesn't mean they act out badly, but most of them are angry, you know. But when you start a character, when I start a character, you start to break them down, right? And you're thinking, how can this woman be like this? Why does she speak to George this way? Why does she use Nick like this? What a rotten, awful human being. What is wrong with this woman? Why doesn't she get her shit together? So then when you start to break it down, what I find, is it's 1962. There is no woman who is a president of a university, or even hardly tenured. She is married to an associate professor who has been an associate professor for 17 years. Her father is the president of the university and has never treated her with any respect. She can't have children. She can't have a position in the university as a woman. So what does she do? She ends up, what? Doing faculty wives' teas? And this is a woman with intelligence and ambition and drive, energy, and she has nowhere to use it. Well, yes, I would be very angry also. You know, so then you start to understand, I start to understand why she behaves the way she does. And then ultimately what happens with the character is you come to love them, you know, because you understand them. And I think this is a factor in, in any kind of communication, really. But yes, that she had a big empty house and nothing to do with her time, with her energy, with her intelligence. Nowhere she could be welcomed to use it. So yeah, she behaves badly.
When did you recognize the power of your voice as an advocate? Was there a particular moment? Now you are a raving advocate.
I am.
Now, I mean, Kathleen's on the board of People for the American Way. She chairs the board of advocates for Planned Parenthood. She serves on City Meals on Wheels, and she delivers meals.
And it always amazes me, truly, that one could have that kind of impact. You know, some of the first times I ever went to Washington, senators who should be doing a lot else would line up to get a picture with me for their offices.
I have seen this. I have seen this happen personally.
Yeah,
Yes,
we've hit the halls together. Yeah.
Right. So we've talked a little bit about voice as the physical aspect. We've talked about it as advocacy. We've talked about it as just sort of like being able to be who you are in this world. You think we should stop and take some questions, maybe?
Well, can I tell one more story today?
Okay.
What about today?
Yes, okay. You've got a story today.
I teach, and when I can, and I really, really love doing it. For colleges, I teach juniors and seniors because I don't think freshmen and sophomores have enough experience to really be able to use what I can give. But I also teach, like today, I finished a class for people who are out in the field working. I mean, they're not in school anymore. They're trying up to almost my age, some of them. And this class is called Get the Fucking Job. we saved enough time at the end of the session today to take, you know, questions and all this stuff. And over from the young women, from actresses, I hear, how do you avoid being typecast? And what do you do, you know, when somebody, I mean, I'm the funny one, or I'm the heavy one, so I have to be funny, or I'm pretty enough that I'm supposed to be this way. And I say to them, you will be typecast. Don't help them. Don't assume you have to be who they classify you as. That's, you know, you're the one person who can say, I can also do this, or this is another quality I have. I do not understand, and I find it very frustrating, and this is far more than acting, I think, than my business, why we accept the classification someone else imposes on us. I don't like it.
Power tool number 2, no excuses, power tool number 2 is define your own terms first before someone else defines you. Yeah. So, questions, comments?
It starts out so happily, so easily, and as we are taught and as we will to do, happy to support him through, you know, through his getting qualified and finishing his education, all that stuff. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to do that for someone, husband or no, that's great. It's when the lack of appreciation begins, when they take it for granted, when they don't say thank you for the gift, you know, that you gave me. And so I think what happens is the woman starts to feel less and less, in War of the Roses, or she starts to feel less and less valued. And he's getting more and more important and successful in a career, and she's being treated as a housewife who's responsible to make sure that the cushions are all creased in the correct way. Well, I think this would eat anybody's soul up, you know. And it gets to a point where he's not listening to her. He doesn't, you know, he doesn't ask her how. She starts tentatively a business. She starts to sell pate because she's been told she makes the best pate, you know. And she offers this to him as something that's changing in her life, and he says, oh, don't be ridiculous. You know, I can't have my wife selling pate. And completely dismissing anything that she is making an effort to do to add or change to her life. That's when it hits. And when she realizes that she's given him this, said to him, I'm scared, but I think this is something I can do well. And he goes, oh, don't be absurd. We're back to anger, aren't we? Shall we move on?
Yes. Here's a question, Kelly. I don't know that, but I will just tell you that one of the workshops that has become increasingly popular that we created in this past year is one that I call gender bilingual communication. And it's a lot of fun, and it's one that I've done with both men and women as well as with women alone. And at this point, I've probably got a list of 25 things that we've all agreed are
ways. You mean that a
ways
word means
that
something to a man than to a woman?
not just a word, but also the way we deliver the word. Women tend to use more adjectives, tend to be more descriptive. The way, the adding those extra small words. I am often guilty of using the word just or a little bit. Instead, only, yes.
I fall into the you know category.
Apologizing before we say what we're going to say. So all of those are attributes of a group that has had less power. And as we take our fair and equal share of power, we're going to have to like stop that, right?
Do you think that also accounts? Do you think it also accounts for the way, you know, young girls end the sentence
upturn, yeah.
So that you I mean, is that suggestive that we're tentative about what we're saying? I threatened to throw my daughter out of the car if she did that. She stopped. Well, there's good reason for these things too, don't you mean? I mean, I'm sorry doesn't just mean that you're actually apologizing. It also means, I hope I'm not hurting you, or I hope, you know, you're hearing this. It's, unfortunately, it is a pattern, and the words do mean, you know.
If they're used sincerely, or if it's
When you go to another country, you learn a few words of their language before you go, because you want to be able to make yourself heard and understood. You want to be able to find the bathroom. You want to be able to get what you need. And I see it as being just like that. And that's why I call it being bilingual. Because you want to be able to speak your language, and you want to be able to speak the other people's language too, for very practical reasons. That's my take on it. I don't know if you have another
No, I think
way
that's
of
very
looking at it.
interesting. I'm
Yeah.
processing that.
Okay, all right, go for it. Yes.
Chime in on sorry for a second.
Unapologetically. Okay, I got this idea. I swear to gosh, it's good. It's not easy, but it's good. I think there should be one day, like the day after Mother's Day, where, you know, not emergency personnel, but women should not go to work that morning or that day. Not gather anywhere, not use under the aegis of any organization, just sit down that day and watch what happens. Yes, because I think not only would it obviously demonstrate how essential, but also to ourselves to recognize that nothing gets done without us, gals. Well, there's no saying. I'm not saying I wasn't called a bitch. No. I have a little advantage. A man can't actually do my job, so I've got that anyway. But no, I have certainly, for many years, been called difficult, which means I have an opinion of how I want something to be done, you know, or touchy, which means I don't accept crap, you know. These are all words that are supposed to, if you said the man was assertive, this is a compliment. But of a woman, you would say they're difficult. But it's the same action being done. You got to get a thick skin. Patty, what's up?
And so you've alluded to it, and we talk about it, and I think it's very important for women to ask.
Absolutely, absolutely, which is a great segue for us. First of all, we want to give a big, warm round of applause for Kathleen.
Thank you.
You know, I have been doing this work for many years. And in fact, when people ask how did we decide on 2025 as being the year when we must reach leadership parity, to tell you the truth, it has a lot to do with the fact that I know I can, or I think I can live to 2025. But it would be very unusual for me to be able to live another 64 years, which is the current trajectory that we're on in order to reach leadership parity. And the other thing that I know is that I'm just one person, and that it's incredibly important if we're going to really help women and enable, propel, and inspire them and all the things that we want to do with Take the Lead, that there have to be many more people than me who are doing this work. And so I'm beside myself with joy to tell you that we have just done our first Train the Trainer. And Lex is in charge of organizing it all. She's started out as a volunteer blogger for Take the Lead, and then she became a strategist, and she's slowly getting sort of drawn in to doing even more. And Emily just had, we just had the pleasure of having Emily in our first group of trainees. So I want to just quickly introduce Dr. Nancy O'Reilly, who is making it possible for us to do another Train the Trainer, which we think we will be doing early next year. And I just want to say thank you, Nancy, and appreciate that this is going to happen, because I mean, I really seriously want to thank you publicly for writing the check, essentially, that is going to enable us to continue doing Train the Trainer next year. And I just have to make one more exciting announcement before I let you go. I want to say thank you to each of you who has contributed to Take the Lead, because it will enable us to continue the kinds of work that we've been talking about tonight. I want to call your attention to this booklet that tells you more about Take the Lead. Please find us on any social media you can think of. Give us a call, give us a yell. We need your volunteer time. We need your support in all kinds of different ways. We have envelopes for you if you would like to put a check in it tonight. We will be eternally grateful. And with that, I would just like to say thank you all again. And thank you, Patty. Did you go hide somewhere? Thank you, Patty, for opening your home to us. We are so appreciative. And are we going to get to parity by 2025? Yes. Yes. All right. Let's go for it.